Do you ever find you have stacks of cards and you just don't know what to do with them? Why not make a box, put some cards in it, and give a gift to a friend? Today, we are going to make a box together, and as we do, I'm going to show you exactly how you can make a box of just about any size. Let's get started. We are going to make exactly this box, but the great thing about this video is that with this super handy box making tool, along with some tips and tricks on how to measure, you'll be able to package anything that you'd like to in a traditional rectangle or square kind of box. And I'll also give you some tips and tricks on how to decorate the top. This box contains cards because that is one thing I love to gift, our handmade cards. The way that I package them up is there are 6 in here, and each card has a white envelope with it, and it is housed inside a clear envelope. This way, just in case anything happens to the box, something gets spilled on it before it gets to where it needs to go, at least the cards themselves are in great shape and nothing will go wrong. You'll notice that I actually made the top a little bit shorter than the bottom. It doesn't go all the way down. That's an option you'll have based on the way I'm going to show you how to make a box today. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to measure our contents so we know exactly how big we need to make our box. There's a tiny bit of math involved, but it's super easy and I know you can handle it. So we're going to measure this. I know there are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cards, which you can see here. I'm going to go actually all the way over to 4 1/2 because that takes into account the size of the envelope, which is a little bit larger than the card itself. And then this with the envelope here is almost 6, and you always want to round up to either the 1/4 or the 1/2. It's just so much easier when you're measuring for your box. So 4 1/2 by 6 is going to give me plenty of room. And then I just want to make sure this is, I already know what size that box is, but if I was making it, I would want to make sure that I had enough room. And if I want to let these kind of just relax and breathe, I would round it up to 1 inch. So 4 1/2 by 6 by 1 are the dimensions of the box that I want to create. And that's what we're going to do. So you're going to need a piece of 8 1/2 by 11 for the top and the bottom. And then we're also going to make this little decorative piece that is just a little bit, it's actually 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. And then we're going to decorate it. But first we need to create the star of the show, which is my box shim. This was made using window sheet, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. The only thing that I recommend is that the width of this is 2 inches. It doesn't necessarily have to be this tall. We are actually going to use one of the inserts from a stamp case, some new stamps that I got. The window sheet that comes with them. I'm just going to use that just to show you that you can just use scrap packaging and make this great little tool that you can use for every box. Once you make one, you're good to go. But I wanted to show you how to do that. All right, so the first thing you're going to do, it doesn't matter, like I said, the length is not that important. I wouldn't go longer than 8 or 9 inches just for storage ease, but any length a little bit shorter than that is just fine. And now that I have my 2-inch piece, I've switched to my Simply Scored, and we're going to score this at 1/2 inch from either side. I like to do, since I'm right-handed, I like to hold with my left and then hold the tool in my right hand. So I'm going to go a 1/2 inch here. And you want to go back and forth a few times. And once I get the line going, I'm just going to keep kind of drawing it back and forth. Definitely use the smaller end of the stylus. The stylus has a wide end and a narrow end because that's going to give you a much tighter and more forceful score in the window sheet. Then I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to score it at 3/4 of an inch. So one side is 1/2, one side is 3/4, and it's on the long side for both. All right, so here we go. I started with the wider one. That was just a mistake on my part. You do want to use the more narrow one. You can see the more I go back and forth, the more the right side here is lifting up as this score mark gets tighter. Okay, so now I have these two and I don't need this anymore. Now what I need is my bone folder to finish this off. I'm actually going to put this on, I think it kind of disappears on this color here. I'm going to put it on this so you can see it a little better. So I have my two score lines. I'm going to go ahead and fold them in. There we go. And just kind of fold it down. So get it started with your fingers. Same with the other one. Make sure that the top is aligned so that you're going down the correct line. And then I'm going to use my bone folder to really crease that well. All right. And again, just like when you scored it, you want to go back and forth a couple of times and really burnish it well. That's why I like the Stampin' Up! Ones with the points on both sides. All right, and then you can pull it up so that you can get the other side, because you do want to fold them both in to the center. This is the 3/4 inch score. So this is the longer one, or the wider one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use my bone folder. Okay, so this is probably one of the hardest parts of the whole thing. There we go. Okay, now what we need is, I need to know exactly how long this is. Bring my handy ruler back in again. And we are working with, almost 7 inches, 6 3/4 inches. So I'm going to grab a scrap of old cardstock. This is powder purple powder. I honestly can't remember. But anyway, what we want is 1 inch piece of cardstock that measures exactly the same length. So I'm going to cut this down. Just going to measure twice, cut once. 7's going to be fine. I'll have a little bit off the end to trim, but that's okay. So then I'm going to extend my cutter, and we have 7 inches. All right, so now I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch. Put my corner down, score this time, because it's cardstock, it'll be fine right here. I could go back to my simply scored, but I don't really want to keep moving back and forth. So again, a good score 4 times or so. Fold it down on the score. That's the easiest way to do it. And then burnish the score with your bone folder. All right, now we are to the last step. For this step, what you'll need is a little bit of tear and tape, and I need my tool here. You can see this one all finished. So what we're going to do is remember this started out 1 inch and I scored it at 1/2, which means that 1/2 inch side, it fits over just perfect. And that is what we want. And then when we start making the box, you'll see what this little beauty will do for you. So I'm going to actually, the first thing I'm going to do is trim this down with just my scissors so that everything is even. It'll just make it so much easier since I'm using tear and tape. So let me just grab a pair of snips here. I'm going to put this on the top, put it right there so I know it's even. And then we're just going to trim. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to put tear and tape on the inside of both sides of this folded piece. Now remember, you're just making yourself a tool for box making. This will work with any box, and it doesn't have to be beautiful. I do recommend you use a bright color of cardstock that's going to be easy to see, so you can grab this out of your stash of supplies, because you're gonna find that you use it quite often. All right, then I'm gonna take the release paper off of both sides, and I'm just gonna be careful to not get my fingers stuck on the side I already took the release paper off. So once again, this is the shorter side, this is the longer side, so it's the shorter side that I want this to be on. So I'm gonna pull this, set that down, I'm gonna pull this back just to give me a little space. It'll fold right back in again. Then I'm gonna meet this score line up with the top of this. So I'm going to meet these two together, and I want it to be pretty close in length. And you can see right here we go. There we go. Okay, so you can see right here, they're meeting at the top. They're nice and tucked. Looks like I might need to trim just a little bit more. But first, I'm going to fold this over and get it attached on both sides. So there we go. That is what I want. I want my cardstock tucked down on this side of my tool. Then I'm just going to trim the bottom so it's all even. And now I have a great tool to use to make a card. This one's just a little bit shorter than this one, but they both work great. Quick time out here just to ask you to click that like button because it really does help a small channel like mine. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please click the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and then you'll know when I post my next video. Let's get back to making that box. And it's really this cardstock that is the key to everything. So let me show you how this is going to work. Remember, our measurement of our contents was 4.5 by 6. Now we need sides for our boxes. I'm going to do a 1-inch bottom on my box, which means I need 2 extra inches here, or 1 extra inch here, 1 extra inch here, 1 here, and 1 here. So that means that my bottom box is going to be 2 plus 4.5, which is 6.5, by 2 plus 6, which is 8. So 6.5 by 8 is what I want to cut this down to make the bottom of my box. And this is pretty straightforward. So let's get to the bottom first. So it's going to be 6.5, which is right here, which is 4.5 plus 2. And this side is going to be 8 inches. There we go. And we're doing that on the top, for the top and the bottom. So 6.5 by 8. There we go. All right. Now that I have those two, we're going to use our Simply Scored tool to make our box. The reason, I'm going to bring in the finished one real quick. The reason that the top slides on and off so easily is because of that wonderful tool that we made. We need to score 1 inch. We're going to actually make a matching top and bottom, so I'm not going to do the gap. So this is going to be 1 inch, and then this is going to be 1 inch just like it was. So this is going to be the bottom of our box. I'm going to bring in my tool. I'm going to hook it on right here. And what that is going to do is move my cardstock over ever so slightly to make the score a little bit smaller, and it'll make the bottom of the box just a tiny bit smaller. So I'm going to move this over. This is hooking on here, and I'm just going to butt this up against it. And then I'm going to take the wider end of my stylus tool and score at 1 inch. And I'm going to go around, and I'm just getting that little extra, that smidge right there. I'm still scoring on 1 inch, but it actually, in reality, is probably less than 1/16 of an inch off. So it's just a little bit smaller than 1 inch. Not anything measurable, really, but just a little tiny bit. But all four corners are the same because I use the same tool. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my top. So this time I'm going to do 1 inch without the tool. That's going to make the top, and that's going to make each of these scores just a little bit wider. All right, so we're going to do 1 inch all the way around. Then I'm going to burnish both of these, add tear and tape after we miter, and pull it together. So the first thing we're going to do is fold on all the score lines just to get going here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to miter on the left and right of the score line. It's a small miter. It's all you need. I'm just cutting all the way up to the point where that score line ends into the cross one. Some of my miters might be a little bit larger, some just a little smaller, but all this is going to do is make it really easy to finish off the box. Now I'm going to use tear and tape today to assemble this, but you could certainly use any kind of permanent adhesive that you'd like to use. You could use liquid glue if you like a little bit of wiggle room when you're doing this. You could use Stamp and Seal Plus, which is a rolling dispenser, a little bit easier to work with than tear and tape. But tear and tape's what I grabbed today, so that's what we're going to use. All right, here we go. One more, and then the mitering is all done. All right, let's add our tear and tape. I am going to, you can see how this is coming up. This is the way the box is gonna go together. I want to put the tear and tape on the opposite side. So I want the box puffing up and the top puffing up. And then I know I'm putting my tear and tape on the correct side. So I'm just gonna add 2 pieces in each corner. All right, and this is my last piece of release paper, and now we can put the bottom and the top together. So I'm going to fold in my tabs and then fold up the adjacent corner, and they will meet. I'm just going to work my way around each of these pieces to get it all together. It's pretty darn easy. You just want to take your time so everything matches up. The other thing I like about using a sturdy dry adhesive is that you're done as soon as it touches. There we go, all of the edges. 2 more to go, and then I'll show you what I mean about that magic box tool. This is the bottom and this is the top. And the way I know is that this piece goes over perfectly. Well, it'll be more perfect the more times you use it, but it does match up really nicely. Now I will tell you, making these the same dimension is easier when you're assembling, less calculating, less confusion, but it does make the box a little bit more sticky. If you want a little easier lid to take on and off, I would recommend that you shorten the depth of the top. You can still fit just as much stuff inside, but you will have an easier time getting the top on and off. As you can see, our cards fit just perfectly, and we have our top going on and off just so. Let's get our decoration done, and we'll be finished with this box. All right, the last step for making our box, we have it all assembled here. Let's make a decoration for the top. I'm using my Flirty Flamingo ink pad with a 5 3/4 by 4 1/4 piece of Flirty Flamingo cardstock. I'm also using some scratch white to stamp a birthday greeting from the Sweet Citrus bundle, which this whole class is all about. And then I have this cute little banner die from the Stylish Shapes die set. What we're going to do is I'm going to stamp the happy birthday down, and then I will bring in the sample and show you how this is going to go together. So it doesn't matter where I stamp this, as long as I leave enough room at the top to fit that die around. Then what I'm going to do, but it would be nice if I stamped the bottom. So let's try that one more time. We'll go over here. Okay, 5 mental count, much better. Okay, so there's my happy birthday, and you can see that the die is gonna fit around just fine. But you'll notice if you look at this, and I'm gonna angle it this way so you can see, oh, that's popping up a little bit. Let's do it this way. You'll see that the white is flush with the Flirty Flamingo. And the way that I did that, as you can see where this is coming up a little bit, is I actually cut this die out of both the embossed piece of Flirty Flamingo, and then I cut the die out itself. So I'm gonna go over to my die cutting machine and take care of that real quick. I will be right back. So the order of events to make this happen is that I stamped this, and then I cut it out. Then I cut the same piece out of the Flirty Flamingo piece of cardstock, and then I embossed it. And the reason is because if I emboss it first and then I cut it, when the piece of cardstock runs through the die cutting machine to have this piece removed, it'll flatten out and I'll lose all my beautiful texture that I got from that 3D embossing folder. So now what we're going to do is first, on the flip side of the folder, we are going to use liquid glue this time, and I'm going to put some pretty tight to the top and the bottom of this opening here all the way around. And then I want to make sure I get the edge of this really well too. And then I can just kind of fill in the middle. Always keeping my glue tip close to the cardstock. You can hear that scratchy sound so that I don't have lots and lots squirting out at once. And then what I'm going to do is I'll bring in my box and we will center this on the top. It's going to be a little bit smaller than originally anticipated because as you use the embossing folder, that pulls the cardstock together to get that beautiful image, but it does shrink down how much space it takes up when you lay it flat. So I'm just going to go around here. And now instead of having more bulk with another layer, I can just inlay this right in that opening. So again, with the liquid glue, I'm just going to make sure my edges have quite a bit. Make sure it's right side up. And then I'm going to put it right in here in the inlay space. And there we go. We have a beautiful box of cards. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope that you have enjoyed the first two projects in this bundle-based class that we are doing together. If you haven't seen the first video, I will be sure to link it below. And then this is the 3D project associated with this class. We still have a technique card and a quick card to go. So be sure to tune in soon, click that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you know when I post my next video. And on the screen right now, you're going to see a couple of suggestions on other videos you might enjoy watching.